Have you ever stopped to reflect on how far sin can truly take us? Imagine a place so filled with corruption and wickedness that God decided to destroy everything and everyone. That place existed, Sodom and Gomorrah. Evil had become so overwhelming, so irreversible, that the only solution was fire and brimstone falling from the sky upon the cities. But why did God make such a devastating decision? What really happened in those cities for things to reach such a critical point? Stay with me, because in this video we're going to dive deep into every detail of this powerful story and the life-changing lessons it holds for us today. Sodom and Gomorrah were two cities in the plain of the Jordan, located in a fertile and wealthy region. They were known as prosperous places, filled with riches and seemingly stable societies. But behind that facade, people lived in extreme immorality and decay. The inhabitants were immersed in violence, corruption, injustice, and above all, complete disrespect for one another. Scripture makes it clear, the people of these cities were involved in acts of perversion, and their wickedness had reached its peak. Imagine living in a society where no one cared for others, where greed was law and kindness was seen as weakness. That was the reality of Sodom and Gomorrah. While most people saw only the wealth, God saw the hearts, and what he saw was unbearable. It was in this context that God heard the cries of injustice and decided to act. But before bringing judgment, he wanted to offer one last chance for redemption. That's where Abraham comes in, a man known for his faith and righteousness. He would become the intercessor for the cities. One day, as Abraham was resting, he was visited by 3 travelers. But these weren't ordinary men, they were divine messengers. Abraham didn't know it yet, but one of them was the Lord himself. God could no longer ignore what was happening. He was fully aware of every sin, and the evil of these cities had reached a point of no return. In Genesis 18:20-21, God reveals his plans to Abraham. Sodom and Gomorrah would be destroyed. Abraham, knowing his nephew Lot lived in Sodom, became deeply concerned. Lot was a righteous man living in a city of darkness. So Abraham began to plead with God. He asked, "What if there are 50 righteous people in the city? Will you really sweep it away and not spare the place for the sake of the 50 righteous in it?" And God replied, "If I find 50 righteous people in Sodom, I will spare the whole place for their sake." Then Abraham asked again, "What if there are 45? I will not destroy it if I find 45, God said. And he continued, "What if 40? I will not do it for the sake of 40. What about 30? I will not destroy it if I find 30. What if 20? I will not destroy it for the sake of 20. And if there are just 10? For the sake of 10, I will not destroy it." Abraham had done all he could, but deep inside he knew, even 10 righteous people would not be found. Night fell over Sodom and Gomorrah, and then 2 angels were sent to Sodom to confirm what God had revealed. When they arrived, they found Lot sitting at the city gate. The atmosphere was heavy, thick with wickedness and spiritual darkness. Lot recognized them as divine messengers. Urgently, he invited them into his home. "Please come into your servant's house. Don't spend the night out in the open." But the angels replied, "We will spend the night in the square." Lot insisted, "Please, I beg you. You are not safe out there. Come with me." Finally, they agreed. But the danger was far from over. That night, men from every part of the city surrounded Lot's house. They began to shout violently, "Where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out so we can know them." The word "know" was a euphemism for violent sexual intent. These men were driven by perversion. The city had completely lost its sense of morality and honor. Lot went out and pleaded with them, "Please, my brothers, do not do this evil thing. These men are under my protection." Desperate, he even offered his daughters in an attempt to protect the messengers. "I have 2 daughters who have never known a man. Take them, but do not harm my guests." But the crowd roared back, "You're a foreigner. Who are you to judge us? We'll treat you worse than them." At that moment, the angels stepped in. They pulled Lot back inside and struck the men outside with blindness. The mob groped in confusion, unable to find the door. Then the angels said to Lot, "Take your wife, your daughters, anyone you love, and leave. Now the Lord is going to destroy this place. There's no time left." But Lot hesitated. Even knowing the destruction was near, he clung to the life he had built. So the angels seized him, his wife and his daughters by the hand, and dragged them out of the city. As they ran, one of the angels warned, "Do not look back. Run for your lives, do not stop." But Lot's wife that couldn't resist, she looked back, and in that very moment she became a pillar of salt. Lot cried out, "No, don't look back. Keep going." But it was too late. The skies split open. Fire and brimstone rained down from heaven. The heat was unbearable. Streets turned to rivers of flame. Screams echoed through the chaos as the once prosperous cities were consumed. One angel declared, "This is the judgment of God." He could not allow such evil to continue. Sodom, once rich, was now ash. Smoke rose to the heavens, a permanent reminder of divine justice. Lot and his daughters fled to the mountains, breathless and broken. "Now you are safe," said the angel. "The Lord has spared you. But the ruins of Sodom and Gomorrah will never be inhabited again. Let them be a lasting reminder." The other angel added, "Go now. Live according to the Lord's ways." Lot turned to the angel and asked, "How do I forget? How do I move on from such pain?" The angel replied, "The pain is real, but remember, the Lord spared you. Do not look back. If you don't move forward, you will miss the purpose behind your pain. God's mercy is great. Begin again." Lot looked at his daughters, scared but alive. He whispered, "Come, my daughters. The Lord gave us a second chance. We must not waste it." The ashes still floated in the air. The sky, once opened in fury, was now silent. But it wasn't peace. It was the weight of emptiness. Lot and his daughters had reached the cave in the mountains, alone, without his wife, without his possessions, without the past. Everything they had known was left behind, consumed by the flames of judgment. At night the silence was suffocating. Lot stared at the distant fire on the horizon, and his soul burned along with the memories. He asked himself, why were we the only ones? Why me? Why couldn't my wife turn her back? But the questions had no answers, not in that moment. His daughters, frightened, tried to sleep. But every gust of wind seemed to echo the destruction. Every shadow in the cave seemed like a reflection of the lost city. Lot fell to his knees. "Lord, you spared me. But what do I have left now?" And from the depths of the cave, where not even light could reach, a soft voice seemed to echo in his soul. "You are still alive, Lot. And as long as there is life, there is purpose." Lot wasn't a hero. He was an ordinary man trying to survive in a world that had lost the fear of God. But even in the midst of ruin, God still saw a story worth continuing. The next morning the wind blew cold. The ashes had stopped falling. It was a new day. But something had changed in Lot. He no longer looked back. He now walked with a firm gaze, not because he felt no pain, but because he had chosen to honor the deliverance he received. There in that cave a new chapter began. Lot taught his daughters about the God who judges, but also spares, about the fire that consumes sin, but also purifies those who endure. The pain still existed, but now it was fuel for obedience. And you? How many times have you looked back wishing to return to what God told you to leave? How many times have you hesitated before God's direction, tied to the comfort of a past that's already been condemned? The story of Sodom isn't just about destruction. It's a call to separation, a warning against complacency, and an invitation to faithfulness. The valley is behind you. The fire has passed. But the God who judges is the same God who lifts up those who choose to start again. You may have lost everything. You may be in the deepest cave of loneliness, pain, or trauma. But if you're still breathing, God still has a plan. And if you've heard his voice calling you out of the destruction, don't look back. The best God has is still ahead. And so, with sorrow behind them and hope ahead, Lot and his daughters walked on toward a new beginning. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Here you'll find many more short, powerful, and meaningful stories just like this one. Leave a like, turn on the notification bell, so you don't miss any new videos, and share it with someone who needs to hear this too. Your support means a lot and helps us keep bringing content like this. So go ahead and subscribe. The next video might touch you even more.